Hey guys, go ahead and get out your notes sheet for graphing equations in slope-intercept form.
Alright, so here's one last review of slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And again, you should hopefully know these by heart by now. So m is your slope of the line, and we can either find it by a graph, rise over run, or using your slope formula from 2 points. B is your y-intercept of the line. From a graph, you can just look at it, and if you don't have the graph and you have equations, you would plug in a point and your slope and then solve for B. And then x and y represent any points that are on the given line. That's why they remain x and y, since they represent every point on the line. We don't want to put in just a specific number of x and y, which is just 1 point. We want to keep it x and y to show all points. And then just a reminder that in order to use slope-intercept form and identify your slope and intercept, you must solve for y first. So we're just going to practice identifying your slope and your y-intercept so we can start looking at graphing with these. So first example, really easy, already in slope-intercept form. So what we want to be able to do is state m and b, so that when we graph, we know what that means. So m is -3, and I'm going to put it as a fraction, so when we graph again, you have both directions. And then your y-intercept I'm going to put as an ordered pair, would be 0, 9. Your second one, again, m 5. And that could be 5 over 1 or -5 over -1. And then B, your y-intercept is 2, which I'm going to put as our ordered pair, 0, 2. Third one, m 1/2. And then again, it could be -1 over -2, since 2 negatives make a positive. And then B is -8, so at an ordered pair, or as an ordered pair, 0, -8. And then your fourth one, since there is a y, that means there is a y-intercept. It's actually 9. But there's no x, which means the number that was in front of x would have been a 0, which means your slope here is 0. And remember, this is the acronym HOIVUX. So when you have a y equals equation with no x, it's a horizontal line and a slope of 0. Next 4 are going to be practicing solving for y to name your slope and intercept. So you can pause the video, practice these on your paper, and then press play to check them, and then make any corrections if you need to. Okay, so number 5 should be y equals -1/3 x minus 4, and your slope -1/3 x and y-intercept at 0, -4. 6 should be y equals 3/2 x plus 7, so slope is 3/2 and y-intercept is at 0, 7. 7, y equals 1x plus 3, slope is 1, and you can have 1 over 1, and then your y-intercept is at 0, 3. And then number 8, y equals -2/3 x plus 3, slope is -2/3, and then y-intercept is at 0, 3. Okay, these 4 examples are just practicing writing equations in slope-intercept form when you know m and b. So if you want to go ahead and write these equations and then press play to check and see if you got them right, this is really just plugging in. It should be super easy. Okay, so number 1 should just be y equals 1x minus 6, or you can also just have x minus 6. 2, y equals 2/3 x plus 2. 3, y equals -6x plus 4, and then 4 should actually be y equals -1/2 x. You can have plus 0, but you don't need to have it. Please be careful with these. I know what a mistake a lot of people make sometimes, even on type-in questions, is they forget the x. The x is part of the slope-intercept equation, so you still have to have your x after your slope. So just make sure you have what you see on the screen. Okay, so your steps for actually graphing equations in slope-intercept form would be for step 1 to solve the equation for y, and then write your equation in slope-intercept form. If you solve for y, it should be in slope-intercept form as long as you have your x before your constant. Step 2, start by plotting a point at your y-intercept. So from your slope-intercept form equation, you know the y-intercept, and so you know for a fact that's one of your points on your graph. So you're always going to start there. And then from there, you know your slope. So since you know your y-intercept's one of your points on your graph and you know the slope, from that point, you're going to go ahead and use your slope to plot at least 3 more points, and then you're going to connect them to create your line. Something people make a mistake in doing is they think they're going to start their slope from the origin. You don't start from the origin because the origin might not be one of your points on your line. So we do the y-intercept first, and then from there we do our other points using your slope. So I have a small example here you can just watch, and then we'll do the ones that are actually on your note sheet. So you've got this equation, and if we're going to follow through the steps, we're going to solve for y first. That's going to give me y equals 1/2 x minus 3. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start with my y-intercept, and this is why it's important that you know how to identify slope and y-intercept, and you're going to put a point at -3 on your graph. And then from there, since that's one of my points of my line, I'm going to use my slope of 1/2 and plot some more points. So from this point I have a rise of 1 and a run of 2, which would put me up 1 and to the right 2, up 1 and to the right 2, up 1 and to the right 2. Or what I can also do is, because 1/2 would also be the same as -1, -2, I can go down and left. And once I have enough that I think I can make a straight line, I connect, and that was not the best connect, and then you're done. So if you turn over your note sheet, we have 8 practice ones on here just to make sure you're comfortable with how you're going to graph in slope-intercept form. We're going to take a look at those. Alright, so we're going to take a look at some of these graphs together and how you would work through these. So number 1's already in slope-intercept form, so I'm going to identify M and B, and my slope is 4/1, and then I can also use a -4 over a -1. Y-intercept is at 3, so as an ordered pair, 0, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put my first point at my y-intercept, since I know that's definitely one of my points. And then from there I'm going to use my slope, which was 4/1. So my rise would be up 4, and then my run is +1. So up 4, +1, and you're out of space, so now we're going to revert to the negative. So we can now also go down 4 from the y-intercept and to the left 1. Down 4 and to the left 1. And as soon as you have enough points that you think you can make your line, you can connect. And make sure you put arrows, because that line will go on forever in both directions from there. Second example, so again, is already in slope-intercept form. So it's a -3/4, which can either be -3/4 or 3/4. Every slope will have 2 different directions you can go. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then your y-intercept here is at -3. So we're going to put our first point at 0, -3. Our y-intercept, and then if we do -3/4, that's going to go down 3, and then forward 4, because that's your +4. So -3 is down, forward 4 for +4. If we do the other version, it was 3/4, so that's going to be up 3 from your y-intercept, but then to the left 4 to get that negative. So then up 3, and then backwards 4. And then you should have enough points where you can connect your line, and you are done with those ones. Okay, so example 3, we do have to solve for y first. We're going to divide by 2. We're going to have y equals 5/2 x plus 1. So we know m is 5/2, which again can either be positive or negative, and b is at 0, 1. So we'll put our first point at 0, 1, and we'll go up 5, forward 2. Up 5, forward 2. Can't fit anymore, so now you can go down 5. And backwards 2. And then you could probably do that one more time and connect to make your graph. Number 4, already solved for y, but there is no x, and what that tells me is that there was a 0 that made x go away. So this is going to be a horizontal line. Anytime you see y with no x, you should be thinking hoy, or if you see x with no y, that's fucks. So horizontal line at 2. So I go ahead and use my y-intercept at 2, and then my slope 0, so I don't even really need to do anything but just draw a horizontal line at y equals 2. Okay, number 5, we need to solve for y by moving x, and we'll have y equals -1x minus 5. So we're going to put our first point at our y-intercept, so that's -5. And then I have a slope of -1, so that's either going to be -1/1 or +1 over -1. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and do -1, which is down and then to the right for positive, down and to the right, or I can go up and to the left. Up, left, up, left. And I was telling you guys in class the one day that the slope of 1 is the slope where you're going to go through every diagonal. If my line was straighter, you would see that. No other slope will cut through every single diagonal along a graph. And then number 6. So 6 just makes you think a little. This is no good to have your decimal. Slope should be a fraction. So if you ever see a decimal, change it to a fraction. We know that 0.5 is 1/2, so I'm going to just change that to 1/2. And then I'm going to start by my first point at my y-intercept of 5. From there, I have that -1/2 slope. So you can either go down for your -1 and then forward 2 to make a positive, so negative over a positive, or you can go up 1 and back 2. And you should connect, and you'll have your line. So number 7, first of all, you should see this in a kind of red flag. It's the misfit of all of your straight lines because there's no y. If there is no y, it means there's no y-intercept. So the kind of line that's never going to cut through your y-axis would be a vertical line. This goes along with vux, which means it's an undefined slope or vertical line. And how we plot it is we just go to x-axis and we go to -3. And it means that x is always -3, so you draw your vertical line at -3 and you're done. And then number 8, we're going to practice solving for y. So there's kind of a lot on the same side as y. So I'm going to have to move 8 and I'm going to have to move 6x over as well. So I'm actually going to show these both at the same time. You can do it in 2 steps, but I'm going to try and save some space here. So I'll have -4y. When I move over 8, you can do 4 minus 8. That's going to be -4. And then I'm going to put my -6x before that, since that's true slope-intercept form, and divide by -4. And we should get y equals 6 over 4 would be 3/2 x, and -4 divided by -4 is +1. So our first point goes at our y-intercept at 1, and then we've got a +3/2, so we're going to go up and forward, up 3, forward 2, or you can go down 3 and backwards 2. And then get enough points to connect, make your line, and you're done. So hopefully you were able to follow along pretty easily. Key to this is all about slope-intercept form. If you have slope-intercept form, then you have your intercept, which is one of your points. You have your slope, which gives you any other points that you want. Connect, done. We will definitely practice more of these, but it's a huge part of algebra. So keep practicing. You can practice some skills on IXL to help you out with this as well. And I will see you guys soon.